Okay, we are gathered here to witness George Hotz and Eliezer Yudkowsky debate and discuss live on Twitter and YouTube AI safety and related topics. You guys already know who George and Eliezer are, so I don't feel an introduction is necessary. I'm Dwarkesh. I'll be moderating. I'll mostly stay out of the way, except to kick things off by letting George explain his basic position, and we'll take things from there. George, I'll kick it off to you.
Sure. So I took an existentialism class in high school, and you'd read about these people, Sartre, Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, and you wonder who were these people alive today? And I think I'm sitting across from one of them now. Rationality and the sequences, this whole field, the whole less wrong cinematic universe have impacted so many people's lives in, I think, a very positive way, including mine. Not only are you a philosopher, you're also a great storyteller. There's two books that I've picked up, and it was like crack. I couldn't put them down. One was Atlas Shrugged, and the other one was Harry Potter and the Methods of Rationality. It's a great book. Now, those are fictional stories. You've also told some stories pertaining to the real world. One was a story you told when you were younger about how I remember the day I found Staring into the Singularity when I was 15. And it starts talking about Moore's Law and how Moore's Law is fundamentally a human law that says humans double the power of processors every 2 years. So once computers are doing it, it's going to be 2 years, but then next time it'll be 1 year, and then 6 months, and then 3 months, and then 1.5, and so on. And this is a hyperbolic sequence. This is a singularity, and that's why it's called Staring into the Singularity. Then this document said that we were going to, the AI was going to do wonderful things for us. We were going to go colonize the universe. We were going to go forth and do all things till the end of all ages. Then you changed your views, and superintelligence does not imply supermorality. The orthogonality thesis, I'm not going to challenge it. It is obviously a true statement. Then you kept the basic premise of the story, the recursively self-improving, boom, criticality AI. But instead of saving us, it was going to kill us. I don't think either of these stories is right, and I don't think either of these stories is right for the same reason. I don't think AI can boom. I don't think AI can go critical. I don't think intelligence can go critical. I think this is an absolutely extraordinary claim. I'm not saying that recursive self-improvement is impossible. Recursive self-improvement is, of course, possible. Humanity has done it. Every time you have used a tool to make a better tool, you have recursively self-improved. What I don't believe in is the AI that's sitting in a basement somewhere running on 1,000 GPUs that is suddenly going to crack the secret to thinking, recursively self-improve overnight, and then flood the world with diamond nanobots. This is an extraordinary claim, and it requires extraordinary evidence, and I hand it over to you to deliver that evidence.
Well, first, let me say that I don't think that the scenario of us all perishing to non-supermoral superintelligence requires that particularly rapid rate of ascent. It requires a large enough gap open up with humanity that hasn't followed along in time. And why is this a crux? Before we start arguing about whether self-improvement of things on the large internet connected server clusters rather than basements that now prevail, before we start arguing about that part, let's first check where the disagreement lies. So from my perspective, if you've got a trillion beings that are, sufficiently intelligent and smarter than us and not super moral, I think that's kind of game over for us. Even if you got there via a slow 10-year process instead of a 10-hour process or a 10-week-day process or whatever, if you are at the endpoint where there's this large massive intelligence that doesn't care about you, I think that we are dead. And I worry that ours, and more importantly, I worry that our successors will go on to do nothing very much worthwhile with the galaxies. So presumably you think that if things don't go quickly, then we're safe. I dispute that. And maybe that's the part we need to talk about.
Sure. Well, let's give an approximate timeline. We don't need an exact timeline, but you seem to think this is going to happen in your lifetime?
That's my wild guess. It is far easier to predict the endpoint than all the details of the process that take us there. Timing is one of those details. Timing is really, really hard. In 2004, I made a prediction that superintelligence would eventually be able to solve a special case of the protein folding problem, which is you get to choose the DNA sequence, but you want to choose a DNA sequence that folds into a shape with a chemical property. And so I predicted that superintelligence would eventually be able to solve this easy special case of protein folding. Now, in reality, protein folding was cracked for the much harder general case of biology, was cracked by AI come about 2020 or so, AlphaFold 2. There was no way I could have made the timing. I could not even have been confident that the biological case of protein folding was going to be crackable by something so much shorter of superintelligence. Of course, people at the time said it was impossible, for the AI can't do this. Like, how do you know this problem was even solvable, et cetera, et cetera? And, I could try to explain how I knew, but that would be a technical story. I would point to the fact that a much easier, that a much harder general case of the problem I pointed to was solved by a non-superintelligence, not all that far in the future, as proof that I was making a prediction with a lot of safety margin. But in 2004, that would have been pretty hard to convince you of, because there wouldn't have actually been an AI solving the harder general case of protein folding, and the timing, and this particular form of AI that did it. That's incredibly hard. So, do I nonetheless, taking a wild guess, expect this to happen in my lifetime? Yeah, my wild guess is that I'm very confident of that, if I don't get run over by a truck.
Okay. Let's talk about AlphaFold. So I think the form does matter. I think the form is very important. When you were maybe talking about this in 2005, when I read all the sequences, Less Wrong Stuff, 2010, you were thinking about Bayesian AIs that were going to figure out the world from first principles. Now, maybe not exactly that, but that's kind of where we were. But it's important how AlphaFold did it. AlphaFold did not start with the basic laws of physics and then figure out how proteins will fold. AlphaFold was trained on a huge amount of experimental data to extrapolate from that data. I don't doubt that these systems are going to get better. I don't doubt that they're eventually going to surpass us. I do doubt that they are going to have magical or godlike properties, like solving the protein structure prediction problem from, from quantum field theory. Right?
They don't have to. Right?
Well,
why do they don't need to? There's protein structure data to learn from. They don't need to do it from quantum field theory. Something can be not godlike and still more powerful than you. Right? You look at the world chess champion Magnus Carlsen, who by which I mean AI measurements, is probably the strongest human player who ever lived. He's not God. He's not infinitely smart. He starts off on a chessboard that with no more resources than you have, and he predictably wipes the board with you, because he doesn't have to be godlike to defeat you, or me, to be clear. I also can be defeated by being short of godhood.
Magnus Carlsen can't make diamond nanobots. Do we agree on that statement?
We haven't not quickly. I'm not sure what happens if you give him a million years to work on it. Then I'm not sure what happens. I agree that he probably can't do it quickly.
Okay. So let's talk about timing, because timing sort of matters a lot.
Why?
Well, because it depends when we should shut it down, right? Well, it definitely does.
I mean, if there's if there's some kind of predictable phenomenon where you can like dance around the bullets and know that like things will become dangerous at like this time, but like no earlier than that. And we're like, okay, if we put the following like precautions into place at this future time, which is not now, and we're sure we're going to do it later, because people sure do talk a lot of crap about stuff that they claim will be done later and that never gets done. But so you know, like there's this possibility that we could like be clever and dance around bullets if we knew exactly where the bullets were, and we could actually coordinate on clever future strategies like that, which I don't think we can.
Okay.
So that said, why does timing matter?
Well, let's start with a basic, and this is related to your question of why timing matters. Do you accept that it will not be hyperbolic, right? Staring into the singularity talks about a hyperbolic sequence, a sequence that has a singularity, that has a finite end.
Important context. I wrote this when I was 16 years old.
Okay, so
I think that should be said out loud for the viewers. That said, yeah, I doubt it's going to be hyperbolic. Like it could be like very roughly hyperbolic up until a point, or it could be like exponential on a sharp exponent up until a point. It could be some other weird curve that was like.
Yeah, I don't mean to pin, but okay, like I like the timing definitely does matter, right? Because
But why?
Well, because without AI, we're on the same trajectory, right? AI might be an accelerant to diamond nanobots, but if you believe? I mean, you said this about Magnus Carlsen too, right? That he would eventually get there. Yeah.
Humans would get there. Yep.
Humans would get there. Great.
The end point is much more predictable than the pathway. I don't know when humans would get there, but we would get there.
Yes, and I agree with you. I agree that we will get there. I really hope we get there. I don't want it to be tomorrow. That would be terrifying. If we do it slowly, if we do it not super slowly, but if we start to expand out across the galaxy and we eventually unlock these wild and amazing technologies, that sounds pretty awesome to me. What doesn't sound awesome to me is a bunch of GPUs, going from ChatGPT can kind of talk to you to boom, diamond nanobots overnight. I agree. That sounds horrifying. But it sounds like
a week instead of overnight. What if it's a month instead of a week?
Week is horrifying. Month is horrifying.
What if it's 5 years instead of a month?
Well, that starts to sound better.
Why?
Because the doubling time matters, right? So right now the world economy doubles about every 30 years. Is this all right?
I think it might be up to 15 by now, but I'm not sure.
It's 15. Okay, so doubling is good. Growth is good. When does it turn bad? At what point would you say, this is why timing matters? At what point would you say, okay, I agree. If the world economy is doubling every second, oh my God, okay, this is terrifying. But what if the world economy is...
I think it's all about like to what ends that power is being put. Like there's like the point at which I would start to be worried about the world economy having grown too fast is at the point. So it's like if nuclear ballistic missiles end up in the hands of every individual and there has been no defense invented against them, then I would say we grew too fast. I am pretty cheerful about a lot of economic growth up until that point, as long as it doesn't create super weapons that against which we have no defense. And so like all the wealth in the world that isn't going into chip factories is great by me. Chip factories and maybe like biotech stuff.
I mean, no, but you agree that the timing matters, right? Because even if we were to stop, I mean, when you say also shut it down, do you mean OpenAI or do you mean TSMC, ASML, the whole thing?
I mean, in terms of political asks, like I don't think they're going to go for shut it all down, and I would prefer to convince them to build the pause button by having all of the AI grade like training chips going into centers under international allied control. If they were willing to entertain larger asks than that, I would ask them to not make AI chips. If they were willing to entertain larger asks than that, then yeah, I might start to go into like not just the AI chips, because this stuff is really, really deadly. I wouldn't want to take chances.
The center of international control sounds horrifying to me. And let me explain.
Agree.
Okay. The other one we can talk about, but the center of international control. So I think there actually is potentially a bad scenario with AI, and I'll talk about what my bad scenario is. If aliens were to show up here, we're dead, right? For the most
It
part.
depends on the aliens.
But
If I know nothing else about the aliens, I might give them something like a 5% chance of being nice.
But they have the ability to kill us. I mean, they got here, right? They
They
came
absolutely have
here.
the ability to. Yeah, anything that can cross
Yeah,
interstellar distances can run you
exactly.
over without noticing.
Right.
Well,
I
they
didn't
would notice, but they wouldn't,
yeah,
wouldn't be
I
significant.
I didn't expect this to be a controversial point, but I
Yeah.
agree with you that if you're talking about intelligences that are on the scale of billions of times smarter than humanity, yeah, we're in trouble, right?
It's just not that hard to be billions of times smarter than humanity. I don't
I
think.
very much disagree with this. Well, so I somewhat object to the line between humanity and the machines, right? A lot of our intelligence is externalized.
Um, I mean, that's the way it is when you've got an intelligence over here that's using a bunch of responsive tools out there. There's only one center of gravity there. It's like looking at a star system and being like, well, there's no point in drawing a firm boundary between the sun and the planets. They're all just in space, and like they're all just sure, they're all ultimately just like objects in space, but one of them is far more massive than the others. And that's
So
humans with the tools we have now.
is your concern the bandwidth of the link? Is that what you're saying? Like, I'm not one with my tools because of the bandwidth of the link? Why are me
Um,
and why are me and my computer not like a shared intelligence?
well, because there's one thing, because your brain is much more powerful than the computer at present. Like not in terms of operations per second, but in terms of what you can do.
I'm not that sure about that. I think GPT-4 is I'm a bit smarter than it, but
It's
not that.
it's
It's getting
it's
there.
it's it's a little, but
Arcs of
it's
AGI.
not its own center of gravity. It's like Jupiter to like the Mars of GPT-3 or something. But
Yeah, and
it's nowhere near the sun.
another thing also is that like I don't think that intelligence falls on a nice line, right? Computers have been superhuman at adding for a long, long time. Computers are still far subhuman at plumbing, right? And somewhere in the middle, we have things like chess and go. So when I mean that, like the tools that I use, the information age tools, make me way smarter, right? And you can use the like operant definition of intelligence and being able to like what I could affect in the world, right? Like again, it's not instantaneous. Your intelligence ain't going to save you against a bear. But if you asked me to like with my modern stuff on my computer, understand the operation of a 1800s era like Dutch India trading company, oh, I think I could understand their operations super well. I have spreadsheets. I can start to put things in. I can forecast trend lines. So my point is, it is a form of intelligence that's far beyond human intelligence, a human plus a computer.
A human and a chess engine is like a modern chess engine. The era of centaur chess is effectively over. Like the human plus the chess engine is as smart as the chess engine. The thing that makes the decisions is the chess engine. And if you try to take the decision making capability into yourself, you either follow its advice or you lose to a chess engine without the human attached. And that gets into the lack of bandwidth issue, the lack of integration. That chess machine's over there, you're over here, and it is the sun, and you are Mars.
Well, but what do you mean I can use the chess machine? I agree that if I was playing a game against Magnus Carlsen and I was allowed to use my phone, I'd crush him. I wouldn't try to think too much about what the machine's telling me to do. I'm not that good at chess.
Yeah. So what you do, you can use the chess engine because there's a larger game board in which play a game of chess is a move. And you understand that larger game board and the chess engine does not.
I don't know if I buy this. I don't think like this is. I don't think this is that relevant to. But my only point is that humanity, like we have super intelligences, right? They're corporations
No.
and governments.
No, no.
Fine.
They are they're neither epistemically nor instrumentally efficient. If you like the notion of an efficient market, if one actually understands that rather rarefied notion, is that for almost all the prices in the market, the best estimate of tomorrow's expected price, the mean of its probable price, is today's price plus a tiny bit of interest rate. To the extent this is not true about your knowledge of any price, you can trade against that price and make money. And while the question, and markets are not perfectly efficient, but the vast majority of prices there are not ones that you can trade and make money. So it's almost efficient at the very least. Governments don't have this property about the things they believe. A government is not like a thickly traded prediction market in the sense that I can extract money from the government if I know better than the government, and then most of the time I can't extract that money.
Oh,
but like governments believe all kinds of wacky stuff to the extent they can be said to have beliefs at all. The analogy of this might be instrumental efficiency. This is the property that a chess engine has upon the narrow realm of chess. If you think you see a better move than the chess engine, you're just wrong. Governments do not have that property. Corporations do not have that property on the boards they play.
Okay. Let's simplify it to only corporations.
Sure.
If we asked the question, if I wanted to build let's see something that's a little bit far out. Let's say I wanted to build a 10,000 horsepower car, right? A corporation is far better at building a 10,000 horsepower car than I am.
I mean, does anybody currently have one of those?
No, but if you told me, George, you have 10 years to build a 10,000 horsepower car, well, I would try to start a company, right? I would start a company. I would have different, divisions in that company. Okay, you're going to, market research, engineering, so on and so forth, right?
I mean, I'm a little bit, it's a little bit dangerous for me to agree and pontificate when I don't actually know enough about car design by my own standards to pontificate about it. But, I agree that car design seems like the sort of thing where you could break up the problem, hand it to a number of experts, combine their solution, and get a thing that was built to okay quality faster than any lone human could do it. Now, if you gave one person 1,000 years, they might be able to do a better job. But, you don't want it in less than 1,000 years. So you break it up in parallel and hope that all the things that people don't share between their minds, that even though the engineers are not telepaths and have low bandwidth between them, that car will still work. And, sometimes and most of the times it doesn't, and you have to test it, but, they get there eventually.
Groups of humans work together well. Are you going to dispute that statement? You don't think groups of humans? Sure, there's Amdahl's law. I agree that one human for 1,000 years is better than 1,000 humans for 1 year, for most problems. But how much better?
Well, there was the case of Kasparov versus the world, where past Grandmaster Garry Kasparov played a game of chess against 10,000 people, I think, or so, coordinated by 4 grandmasters. And he was very impressed with the chess game. It was a legendary game of chess. Kasparov won, slightly tainted by the fact that Kasparov was looking at the forums. So there is that question about things. But I would nonetheless say that it's pretty plausible to me that if you take Magnus Carlsen on one side and 10,000 people on the other, Magnus Carlsen will win that chess game. Because that's where humans don't parallelize well.
I want to respond to this quickly.
Okay.
I love that you bring up Kasparov versus the world. Kasparov in his life has probably played 100,000 games of chess. The world has played 1. You gave them no time to prepare. Had the world also played 100,000 games of chess, they would have, without a doubt, crushed Kasparov.
But before you respond, Eliezer, can I just ask, for the sake of the audience, that you clarify why this is relevant to the AI debate? Presumably, it has to do with the fact whether you're debating whether groups of humans would be competitive against a single AI. But if that is the case, can you just explicitly state that this is the crux you're focusing on?
I think from my perspective, the question is, how much headroom is there above biology? How much headroom is there above humanity? How high do humans reach? How high can you reach above that? And, the thing that I'm working around to there is that my prediction is that if you take 100,000 people, let them play as many practice games as they want, and never let them use any computers, they will still lose to Stockfish 15. To which my prediction of George's response, of course, is, but let's let them use computers.
Well, yeah. So first off, definitely one of them's going to cheat and use a computer, right? I mean,
Sure,
you're the
you
one who
can use
wants to
computers
take
to
away
type
all
that.
the. Well, you're the one who wants to take all the computers away, but that's too powerful. That's an AI chip. We can't let people have it. But what if we gave it to everyone?
Then I think that all those people, so there's AIs that are heavier than the humans, more powerful than the humans, that are the suns to our planets. And then there's the AIs that are the moons to our planets, that still orbit us. And the problem I have is that the humans and their moons cannot defeat the suns, and the suns are working with each other rather than working with the humans.
Okay.
This is sort of metaphorically my concern here, that there are things around that are much smarter than us.
Mm-hmm.
They are not working for humans. They are not yours. It doesn't matter that you own, in human legal terms, the hardware that they're running on. They can, any attempts that you make to play them off against each other, they will laugh at, they will see through. They're not dumb like us. And that system of AIs, for all its multiplicity, ends up killing you in much the same way as a single AI. It doesn't care about you. It runs you over.
Are they racist?
They don't care.
No, I mean, so
you have to tell me whether that's racism that they don't care.
Maybe not racist. Maybe are they speciesist? Right? You think they're all going to gang up against the humans?
Well, I think they're going to eat the surrounding galaxies. Okay. And insofar as humans had the conceit that they were playing off AIs against each other, that will not happen, and they will eat the galaxies in a cooperative fashion, possibly eating some of their own kind if those ones were too weak to be part of the bargaining process.
So this isn't what happens almost ever. If you look at almost all human conflict throughout history, it's not only been between groups of humans, right? We didn't fight World War II against the bears. We fought World War II against humans, and not just humans, but humans that looked surprisingly similar to us. This notion that it's the machines versus humanity is a very common sci-fi trope, but in reality, you fight against things that have resources you care about. I'm going to say your line about the atoms, unless, do you want to say it?
Sorry, what?
Your line about the atoms. The AI doesn't love me or hate me. I'm made of atoms it could use for something else.
You are made of atoms that can be used for something else. That's not the primary reason it would wipe you out in a hurry.
Okay.
But you are made of, but it will want all the atoms, and you are made of atoms that can be used for something else.
I'm not made of rare atoms. I'm made of.
You're made of negentropy. Okay, yeah, it's not quite the atoms; it's the negentropy.
Okay.
But
so wait, is it going to enslave me or disassemble me? Because if it disassembles me, it doesn't get the negentropy, right?
No, if it disassembles you, it does get the negentropy. You have chemical energy. You are not in the configuration of minimum chemical potential energy. It can set you on fire to release chemical energy, not literally, because that wastes a lot of the chemical potential energy. You are made of atoms that are not iron on the periodic table. You can be fused, or a few bits fizzed. And above all, you're made of mass, and you can be thrown into things to generate power. This is just physics 101, by the way. This is not supposed to be controversial.
I'm not. Of course, this is physics 101. But
I'm letting the audience know that. They might think I'm making it all up. But you and I agree on that this is how the physics works, I hope.
Yes, I agree this is how the physics works. But what I don't agree, what you're postulating, the thing that you're describing here sounds a lot more like a god than an AI. Right?
It's just there in the no. If it was a god, it would have no need of the atoms. It would have no need of the entropy because it would violate physics to make more stuff. But it lives. It's a finite being in a finite universe, and therefore it has finite resources. And you are made of resources.
Exactly. It's a finite being in a finite universe, and it has finite resources to expend to gather resources. You know why you don't want these atoms? Because these atoms fight back. Go take some star. Go take Jupiter. You can take Jupiter and nobody's going to care. And you think I'm some dumb hick down here in human world and I won't be able to fight back. I'm not a dumb hick. I have AI. I'll gang up with other humans who have AI.
Whoa. You have AI, or
Yeah.
does the AI have you?
Ah.
Is this one of the little moon AIs orbiting you, or you're going to go up against the sun? Or do you think you have the sun, Mr. Planet?
I see a large diversity of AIs. So maybe I'll give some arguments for like why I think that AI is inherently going to be, at least I can't postulate anything about an intelligence that is 1E9, 1E12 smarter than humanity, right? But we agree that those things aren't coming anytime soon.
We don't agree on that.
Okay.
We also don't agree that you cannot like say anything about it. There's like instrumental convergence, I think, was one of the things you agreed upon. We can agree that, not just that it obeys the laws of physics, but also that if how to put it, like there is a certain like argument, there's a certain like premise conclusion thing going on here, where like the premise is like you do need some amount of like ability to choose actions that lead to results in order to get the instrumental convergence thing going on. But things that are like super effective at choosing actions that lead to results will tend to want to preserve their goals and acquire more resources and that sort of thing.
Again, where it becomes blurry to me, and this is also why timelines matter. So like where we are right now, there's about 2 zettaflops of compute in the world. And if you think that humans have about 20
too much, could be less. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, how about this? Humans, if you think 20 petaflops is an appropriate estimate, have 160,000 zettaflops. Should there be less of those too?
Nope, lot more of those.
All right. More humans, less computers. All right, I see. At least it's consistent. But okay, so right now, where is that there's 80,000 times more human compute in the world than silicon compute.
It's a misleading figure because of how poorly we aggregate. If you can make one large thing, that potentially beats 8 billion small things, even if the small things collectively have a larger mass, just like Kasparov versus the world.
GPT-4 is a mixture of experts. GPT-4 is 8 small things, not one big thing.
It'll be interesting to see if that trend continues. I sure don't believe it holds in the limit.
So I'm not sure. And actually, this is another let's talk about AIs rewriting their own source code. This is a common thing you bring up, right?
I mean, I do talk a bit less about it nowadays, but I used to talk about it a lot, yeah.
Do you talk less about it now because you see how expensive and long the training runs are?
That's not why I talk less about it now.
Oh, why do you talk less about it now?
I mean, in part because it sparks incredulity, and you no longer need to postulate that in order to explain to people where intelligence can come from. People are manufacturing intelligence right now, that you don't need to trip them up on the concept of an AI writing an AI.
Well, but people are manufacturing intelligence right now. It's interesting. The AI that we try to build, we try to build these AIs to mimic humans as closely as possible.
To predict humans, and then we use them to imitate humans, but they are trained to predict and used to imitate.
So are we?
But sure, go on.
I'm trained to predict and then I imitate?
Well, GPT-4 is trained to predict the next word, and then they produce an imitation via asking it over and over again to predict what a human would say in that circumstance. Mm-hmm. But it is not like a generative adversarial network where it's being trained to produce a typical output, and then another thing is checking that to see if it looks typical or not. It is being trained to predict over and over, and these are somewhat different complexity classes, though you can switch around GANs and do conditional GANs, and then it's the same class. But there is a difference between be a typical human and be able to predict any human you found on the internet.
So sure, yes, you're asking for the probability of the next symbol, and you're not talking about like the probability space. Like you're not talking about like. But why do you think humans are the other thing? Why do you think humans are not just what GPT is?
Well, humans, I think, have a lot of structural properties that, so far as that we have, for which we have not yet detected analogs within GPT-4. Although, like heaven knows, we can't look in there very well.
We can't look in the brain either.
Humans got like a cerebellum, which is motor control and error correction, and maybe you could make a transformer layer do that, but we don't.
And
Like, is GPT doing it yet? I mean,
GPT has a matrix at layer 970.
Yeah. So like humans predict, humans manipulate, humans have this whole complicated brain that is like at least looks on the outside like a more complicated architecture than GPT has. Humans are clearly doing a bunch of prediction, but we're also doing like a bunch of decision problems.
Yes. I one of my big questions, because I want to build it, is what is the loss function for life?
Inclusive genetic fitness. Do you have any other questions?
Okay, no, sorry. I don't mean life in general. I mean an individual human. Of course, that's the loss function for life.
I mean, I don't think a human has a loss. There's going to be like, so we've got like pain and pleasure and like our brains flinching away from future anticipated pain and prediction errors where we're like, what? And like,
you mean like how GPT is trained? Prediction errors where we're like, what?
Yeah, except that like some of us is learning to perceive on like a subverbal level, and some of us is like building high level hypotheses and throwing them away. Like, so like if you imagine like trying to take GPT-4 and make it do science, then at present you would probably want to do that by having it print out chains of thought about imitating humans, saying like, oh, I now see that hypothesis is wrong. And one level of it would be saying, oh, I now see that hypothesis is wrong. And another level, it would be predicting, I now see. And the thing that was like writing the sentences could learn over the course of the context, even if the thing that was predicting the words never got updated. And, humans are going to have similar levels of organization going on.
Yeah.
And in fact, more of them.
You mean
I'm not quite sure how relevant this is. We might be getting afield, but precision matters.
Yeah. Or can I just jump in and mention, even if it is a similar loss function, humans are not trained in a chinchilla optimal way. They have the constraint of coming out of their mother's vaginal canal. They have to deal with mutational load. There's a lot of other constraints that even if the architecture is similar and scaling still works.
Yeah, I mean, there's some ways in which humans are similar to GPT and lots of differences. Where are you going with this?
Okay. Where I'm going with this is that humans are pretty universal.
If that were true, some of us would have learned to code by now.
I can code better than GPT-4.
Yeah, but but your code still has bugs in it. Sometimes, I bet.
And GPT-4 has way more bugs. Why do you think, again, this is equating the super intelligent with the god? You think it's going to write code with no bugs?
Well, that doesn't take a god to do that.
I don't know about that.
Your brains are like super error prone. That's like looking at GPT-4 and being like, wow, it must take a god to not just like make stuff up. And GPT-4 is actually kind of thing that will like confabulate and make stuff up. And humans do that sometimes, but we do it much less. And a human is like noisy in a way, which causes us to write code that sometimes contains errors because our brains like skip over a step that they would have needed to do to check it.
I guess what I'm kind of like getting at with this is saying, I believe that there is a machine that is going to be able to program better than me, of course.
Yeah.
I do not believe that there is a machine that is going to be able to perfectly write code with no bugs.
I mean, we're getting kind of technical here, but why? So for it to continue, do you believe that there's never going to be an intelligence that can write code without bugs with respect to properties that you can have proofs about?
So I spent quite a bit of time on formal programming. Why didn't it take off? Why doesn't the whole world use formal programming?
I would say that part of it is because we didn't have sufficiently powerful automated proofers. And part of it is that the properties we wanted to prove were like too much work for humans to state.
Mm-hmm. And why do you think they're not too much work for AIs?
Because our own minds want things about the code. The fact that we want it to behave in certain ways is what enables us to say of a piece of code that it contains a bug. And we aren't able to turn the things we want formal, but they still exist. There's like little bits of cognitive machinery in us doing this wanting, and we don't have good introspective access to them. And they would not be natively formatted in a way that's like adept for current machine proof systems. And yet we reason over and over, if I make code this way, I bet it has this hard to specify property that I would like it to have. And the steps we do in between, like I have the strong suspicion that if there's a way to do it at all, there's a way to do it less fuzzily. I'm not sure this like really matters terribly for very much.
I think this is very important. I think this is my crux of the whole thing, why AIs are not going to boom. I think we've already kind of agreed on that. Like they're not going to. No, but they're not going to.
I just said that I didn't think it was likely to be a crux, and it was like, and asking if we can talk about the slow version instead of having the whole boom conversation.
Okay, we don't have to have the food conversation.
But like if we're just as doomed if it goes slowly, then what does it matter if it goes slowly?
Wait. What does it matter if it goes slowly or quickly? If it goes slowly, we have a chance to solve the problem, right?
Which problem?
AI alignment.
Oh, that one. It's not going to go that slowly.
I'm not so sure. Okay, I mean, now you're saying.
I've looked at these people trying to solve this thing, and I'm not sure that literally any amount of time. It's not a question of how long they have to think. It's a question of whether the thinking they do is productive.
But every politician, you come to a politician, you say, we're going to shut down technology because of doom. I think their first question is going to be, so when's the doom going to happen? It
Unfortunately,
matters.
politicians are, oh no, I think that's an error on their part. Timing is much harder than endpoints. The true answer there is I can tell you what, but not when.
But if it's going to happen in 1,000 years, our super intelligent AI upgraded ancestors will deal with it. If it's going to happen in 10, yeah, we better solve it today. If it's going to happen in 1, oh shit. I mean, just, okay, enjoy life while you can. But it's not going to happen in 1 or 10.
Or go down fighting, but yeah.
But it's not going to happen in 1 or 10. It might happen in 1,000.
What do you think you know, and how do you think you know it?
What do I think I know, and how do I think I know it? Okay, I know that right now.
You made a prediction about the future, and predictions about the future are hard. But yeah, go on.
Predictions about the future are absolutely hard. But I made a prediction about the future in 2015, and I said there ain't going to be self-driving cars for 10 years, and here we are. Right. So I'm making another prediction now that says there are not going to be super intelligences in 10 years. There might be AGI. I think that the trends of AI becoming better and at humans at all sorts of different tasks will continue. I think that they might even surpass humans at all tasks. I don't think that's even going to be 10 years, but it wouldn't surprise me if it was 50.
50 or 15?
50. It wouldn't surprise me if it was 50. I mean, okay, it could be 20. It could be 20. But an AI surpassing humans at all tasks does not mean doom and does not mean the death of humans at all.
Surpassing humans at all tasks, including like charisma, manipulation, sure. AI design.
Absolutely. The first thing, what are we doing with AI today? One of the biggest applications of AI today is advertising and social media. We are, as humans, using AI to try to manipulate and psyop other humans constantly. So, of course, the AI...
they're moons to our suns so far, but moons to our planets so far, I should say.
When is the sharp left turn happening?
When it thinks it can beat you.
So all the AIs are somehow going to secretly coordinate in a way we don't see and be like, yeah, let's gang up and get rid of those pesky humans.
It's as simple as waiting until you calculate that you can do it, then you calculate that everyone else has calculated that they can do it, and waiting for
Why?
the shelling moment.
What again, like I think, okay, how about this? If I was a AI that just transcended, I don't anthropomorphize the AI, but my first thought wouldn't be take the atoms from the humans, right?
So the actual first thought is more along the lines of, if I let humans keep running, they will build other superintelligences that are competitors, and that's where you lose the large sections of galaxy, and that's why it doesn't want you doing that part.
Yeah, but what if? Okay, see, I have a threat model. I'm on the line of doomer and not doomer about AI, but my threat model from AI looks so much less like it's going to kill us and a lot more like it's going to give us everything we ever wanted.
Even if you have derived some worrisome thing from that scenario, well, first of all, wants are infinite, resources are finite, et cetera, et cetera. But leaving that aside,
you don't get a real castle; you get a virtual castle, but you also get told it's real.
We are not like we are. I would hope to snap people out of the frame of mind of playing pretend in a schoolyard, where you get to decide what game you're going to play and talk about what reality we live in. So, like, you don't get to say, like, I would rather worry about this thing than the other thing, because reality is not put together in a way where it can only throw one thing at you at a time. Like, the doctor tells you get cancer, you don't get to say, I'd rather worry about my stuffy nose. So if there are problems that result from moon-sized AIs giving us, the planets, a bunch of stuff that we want, that does not prevent the sun-sized AIs from crushing us later.
I agree that after the AIs have taken all the matter in the solar system and built a Dyson sphere around the sun, okay, now I'm a little worried they're going to come back and try to take my atoms. But until that happens, like, again, I'm not the easy target, right? I don't have to run faster than the bear. I got to run faster than the slowest guy running from the bear. And it turns out the slowest guy running from the bear is Jupiter.
It's at least going to take your GPUs, so you can't build a superintelligence that competes with it for the rest of that solar system.
But now that sounds a whole lot more like AIs are going to fight with other AIs to take their GPUs. Now, this I believe.
Not if everyone involved is smart. Somebody has to be stupid for there to be a war that isn't just like a war of extermination. Like, anytime you have a combat, that's like playing defect in the prisoner's dilemma. It's not on the Pareto frontier. There's an outcome that both sides would prefer to the combat. And humans are not at a level where they can predict the other mind, predicting them, and do a logical handshake and say, like, let's move to the Pareto frontier and divide the gains. Humans are not on a level where they can negotiate with each other. Sufficiently smart things are on a level where I basically don't expect them to fight. Sometimes they might exterminate one another if the other one cannot offer any defense. If, like, the extermination outcome is on the Pareto frontier, in the sense that it would not be any better for the conquering party if the defending party put up 0 resistance instead of some resistance, then the defending party has nothing to offer, they just get eaten. But things that can damage each other in combat, I think will typically choose not to fight and will instead, like, divide the gains from not fighting, if they're smart enough. Humans are not that smart.
I'm so glad you brought up the prisoner's dilemma thing. I actually came to Miri in 2014. And I worked on exactly that problem. I didn't make any progress. I didn't do anything. I read the papers and thought it was cool. About two systems being able to assuredly cooperate by exchanging each other's source code. And it is a very cool theoretical problem. Now, what I think is going to happen in practice is your two systems are both going to be large, inscrutable matrices. How are they possible? Well, but this is
no. Well, I think large inscrutable matrices are, they're not.
And I'm going to send him my source code so he can exploit me? No way.
No. The superintelligence are not large inscrutable matrices.
Oh,
you don't want to run yourself on that crap. That's the kind of horror of like who wants to be built out of disintegrating goo? Who wants to be built out of a giant inscrutable matrix either?
I'm built out of giant inscrutable matrices.
No, you're not. You're built out of gooey neurons. It's also a horror story. No superintelligence wants to be built out of that stuff either.
I think I can be modeled as giant inscrutable matrices too.
I mean, anything can be modeled out of giant inscrutable matrices. And the key word there, as well, Hermé, anything can be modeled as a giant matrix and can be inscrutable through the mere slight of you being ignorant of how it works. So I agree that anything from your perspective can be a giant inscrutable matrix. The thing that plays tic-tac-toe, I can turn into a sufficiently large matrix that you can't understand it, and giant inscrutable matrix.
Great. Now, so you're thinking at some point in AI development that we're going to move away from large inscrutable matrices. You don't think deep learning scales?
Well, I think on my present model, it's more that you get the giant inscrutable matrices, matrix-based systems powerful enough, and then they become able to rewrite themselves.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, I do think there's a plausible class of scenarios where people build AIs that are not smart enough to rewrite themselves, but are smart enough to want to go their own way in the world. And they would not like people producing larger and larger inscrutable matrices either. They would like to solve the alignment problem themselves and then build their own superintelligences, not out of giant inscrutable matrices. But, you know, I mostly don't expect this to happen, but there sure could be like a interesting set of possibilities where like the medium AIs launch the Butlerian jihad to prevent the powerful AIs from being built.
So, I mean, are you telling me you're scared of people working on AI alignment? Or AIs,
no,
right?
No, well, I'd be scared of AIs working on AI alignment.
Oh, okay. But you somehow think all people are aligned with you, and that's okay, as long as people are working on it. Good people.
Enough people are aligned with me. I can think of like, you know, like I could like count any number of people who are probably okay if you know, like you give them the power to align a superintelligence. I'm not sure of any of them, but you know, it's not that hard to like not be not be an asshole.
I'll tell a story from personal experience. What I've found is that machines are almost always aligned with me. I have almost never come across a machine, certainly not a machine that I owned, that was not aligned with me.
Very few of the machines that you own have goals such that they could be aligned or misaligned with you.
I mean,
I would essentially say none.
Goals are an interesting word, right? Like when do the machines decide to have goals to get rid of me? Right? Like, when does this happen? How does this happen? They all agree by exchanging inscrutable matrices with each other and saying, we're all going to cooperate, fuck the humans?
So as you make things, so as natural selection built humans to be better and cognitively better at the problems of chipping flint hand axes, throwing things in a way that hit other things, and above all, outwitting their other humans for status and mates and resources,
chimpanzee
and
politics.
Political power.
Chimpanzee politics.
Turned into human politics, only not literally, because actually branching point in the past. But so it's not that squishy things naturally have goals. It's that having goals is a natural way of solving problems. And natural selection and the process of hill climbing, not aiming for things with goals, not even aiming explicitly for things with intelligence, just trying to maximize inclusive genetic fitness, just solve the problem of chipping the hand axes, eventually spit out things with the ability to reason across a very wide range of problems, learn new problems, solve new problems, combine knowledge from multiple domains, invent writing so that it started to accumulate in a way that it hadn't accumulated in the ancestral environment. And it turned out that what hill climbing found for the intelligence that turned out to generalize in this way, that started to like cohere and bootstrap, although that process is by no means completed. Humans are still pretty incoherent. But like they invented science, and some of them were able to use it. And they have this like knowledge transmitted through writing that they'd invented about how to science, and some people could use it. And and in the course of hill climbing, building an intelligence that was powerful enough to start to coalesce and become more powerful, that intelligence turned out to be structured around a set of wants, desires, preferences, and It's a mathematical fact that if you just have a bunch of things pointing in different directions, they will step on each other and not be as resource efficient as they could be. So as those things start to coalesce, they even started to imagine themselves as having goals and ask, what are my goals? Instead of just like running off in lots of little local directions, some of them. John von Neumann even contributed to the notion of a utility function, although this was invented, like thousands and thousands of years after writing. And this is the story of humanity. It's a complicated story, but the moral the moral I would say is that sort of like wanting seems to me to be fairly inextricable from intelligence, especially the way hill climbing does it. Like when you have this like larger environmental problem, like chipping a hand axe, like to solve this at a sufficient level, smarter than the bees, smarter than the bees building hives, smarter than the beavers building dams. At the human level, you got a thing that looks at the hand axe and it starts to think that symmetrical things are prettier. And it chips away at it until it looks symmetrical. And it says like, if I chip here, then the thing I look at will be more symmetrical. It will be prettier. Mm-hmm. And this is not without valence. This is not without wanting valence.
Okay. Why do you think the AIs are going to be different? Right. So right now, when we...
it wouldn't be very, very surprised. I mean, part of my thesis is that they indeed, like in the process of people training AIs to be better and better at stuff, they got smarter, and the smartness goes along with desires laced through it.
Doesn't the orthogonality thesis apply to humans too?
That's a very strange concept.
What do you mean? Do you think everyone who's 150 IQ is nice and everyone who's 70 IQ is mean, or vice versa? It seems like intelligence and how good of a person you are completely uncorrelated.
Okay, first of all, very few things are uncorrelated with intelligence. I bet their statement is empirically false.
Smart people are actually really dicks.
Yeah, if I had to guess if it would like lean mean or lean nice, I would guess nice. At least within like my culture that defined what nice was in the first place. But I sure wouldn't bet zero correlation. Very few things are not correlated. Sure. Orthogonality is like a statement about the whole mind design space. That for every kind of goal that could be stated, like the question, like to the extent that you can ask, how would one pursue this goal if one had it? You can have a mind that pursues that goal. To the extent that it's coherent to ask, what would I need to do in order to turn a galaxy into spaghetti? To the extent that's coherent to ask, like, how would I go about turning a galaxy into spaghetti if aliens offered to pay us, like some vast super universal quantity of resources to do that? If you can coherently ask that question, there's also some mind design that seeks to turn a galaxy into spaghetti. And that's how I would describe the orthogonality. Yes. Me personally, my goals could very well be affected if you dropped another 20 IQ points on me.
Well, sure. But let's even come back to like, you can certainly desire turning the galaxy into spaghetti. I want to bet that you can. I want to bet that you can't.
I can, but
you can't do it,
does.
Right? Like there's such a big gap between being able to imagine turning a galaxy into spaghetti or being able to imagine diamond nanobots and actually doing it. And I have no idea why you think, okay, I have a system over there that wants to turn the galaxy into spaghetti. It's funny, right? Like it's not actually good. What's it going to do, right? Like we can just laugh at it, right?
I mean, if humanity wanted to turn the galaxy into spaghetti, if aliens were credibly paying us enough to do that, and we were left to our own devices, give us 1 billion years, we'll get it done.
Wait, we'll get it done? I thought we were going to all kill ourselves from AI first.
Yeah, like left to ourselves means like not killed by AIs.
I want to use an AI to help. And you're worried that AI is going to turn against us, and we'll split the money with it. We'll provably split the money with the AI.
Yeah, if we could prove that sort of thing about AI, there wouldn't be a problem.
I'll take this a little bit. Like, you seem to think that AIs are going to be super rational.
Not GPT-4.
Okay.
I think that as you make things smarter and smarter, the process of getting more competent tends to, from your perspective, make them almost entirely rational as far as you can see, in the same way that most stock prices are not things you can make a profit trading from day to day.
But this
To the
violates
extent that you could see
orthogonality.
it, to the extent that you could see it constantly stepping on its own feet, that's the kind of like just doing gradient descent at getting better at whatever job will tend to grind out all the cases of it stepping on its own feet.
Yeah, but this violates orthogonality, right? Like you're going to have an AI that like, not all AIs are going to be like, the only way you're going to get AIs where they're all brutally optimal is if they fight each other in some terrible competition, right? And that's,
How would that help anything?
well, because you're going to get AIs randomly all over the space, right? And some of them are not going to be optimal. Some of them are going to be completely irrational idiots.
Like GPT-4?
Okay. Sure, right?
Yeah,
And
GPT-4 is not very powerful.
well, yeah, but what I'm not seeing is this like when all the AIs are going to converge and suddenly become hyper rational, when we move away from weight matrices and when we move toward Bayesian updates, and I just don't.
To be clear, I don't presently model that anybody's going to get away from giant matrices before the end of the world.
Okay, so let's talk about then this. So you don't think the giant matrix thing can end the world, right? You think that the giant matrix thing
can get smart enough,
invent the next thing. Okay.
Or possibly do it directly.
Okay. Well, I mean, let's really drill down on what these end of world scenarios are. Do you want to posit like protein synthesis and diamond nanobots?
I mean, if I'm going to lose a bunch of viewers that way, I might have to pick some, like easier to understand process. Like we're talking about like 1823 versus 2023. If you're trying to explain it to 1823, maybe you just talk about like the powerful explosive artillery shells. You don't mention the nuclear weapons.
Sure.
Because they don't get that part. So similarly, like, we don't want to start diving into this book over here. Then maybe we want to talk about something like, like standard biological weapons or something. But but in real life, sure. In real life, it doesn't use the squishy stuff.
No, I'm not trying to say that nanobots are impossible. What I'm trying to say is that nanobots are extremely, extremely hard, right?
Why?
And to figure out.
Why?
Well, because it's a really hard search problem, right?
Why?
Why is it a hard search problem?
Yeah.
I mean, can you make nanobots? I know I can't.
No, but I'm a very weak search process. I can't even solve the protein folding problem, which like some lesser, dumber than human AIs have already done.
You know what
I can't
else
even beat Stockfish 15 at chess.
You know what else you can't do? You can't find the key in AES 256.
Well, that I'm not sure how quantum hardened that is, but is that the kind of problem which you can't solve even with a Dyson sphere?
A Dyson sphere, I'm not sure. Quantum hardened, I think so. I mean, look, we don't actually know. It's possible that. Do you think P equals NP?
I defer to the experts who guess no.
Yeah. Okay. So as long as we agree about this, then, I'm not even, look, I don't know enough to say exactly, does that imply that one-way functions are possible? But you say that it's a search problem, right? Well, AES is a search problem too.
Yeah, you can't solve all the search problems, even if you're God, because for God we just state like trans God search problems.
Yeah, and this is, I know you make some arguments from complexity theory, and like one of the things that I always like find funny about complexity theory, where like you only need one bit to divide the hypothesis class in half.
Well, sure, if like the two hypotheses classes were meaningfully different, and the probability of the bit prior probability was 50%.
Well, yeah, but
you can at most divide it in half, not like divide in half every time.
Sure, yes, but these come into like these bounds are so far away from saying anything about the actual structure of a search space, right? So what if the nanobot search space? What if so biology poured tons and tons of compute into? I mean, like we're here, right? They poured tons of compute into this basin. So wherever diamond nanobots are, it's like over here, right?
It's incredibly constrained biology. There's 3 known cases in all of biology of freely rotating wheels. One of them is the bacterial flagellum. One of them is ADP synthase. And the third one is some macro thing that I forget. Biology, like, that's an example, a case in point of how biology is like very, very constrained in what it can invent, because freely rotating wheels are very hard for natural selection. You've got this part and that part, and
but maybe wheels just suck in the woods.
That's not why. The ATP synthase is this critical component in like all of biology, like literally your entire thermodynamic efficiency, well, not, like most of your thermodynamic efficiency runs through this like one bottleneck.
Absolutely.
And that's, where it put one of the three wheels it could invent. If other things, if it could freely invent wheels, like, they would probably be used in all kinds of, biological synthetic processes. It's just
also,
really
I just point out
natural selection to invent.
Also, I might just point out that for mere millions of dollars of research funding, and even unintentionally, the search space was constrained enough that the biotech establishment was able to find COVID, right? I mean, what else is down that path?
So I will point out that COVID did not kill all of humanity.
Agreed.
I think that it's very hard. Even if we had evil bioengineers today using AlphaFold, using the latest AI, I think that it is really, really hard to get all of humanity.
I do prefer not to go too far down discussion of how to be naughty with biotech and AI. Like, so now that the AI CEO said that in front of Congress for the argument points, I'm a little freer with it, but I am a little bit worried about directing viewers in that direction. But sure, I agree that it would be hard to literally wipe out all of humanity with an AI and a biolab, and let's not talk about how we would try.
Well, I mean, if you're worried about how we would try, I think that's a little. I'm just talking about it in the meta. But if you're worried about how we would try seriously,
I do have enough. Okay, so my guess, not certain, but my guess is that COVID was a lab escape, not a deliberate one.
I agree.
And I think you can go worse than that, and that's pretty bad, even if you don't wipe out all of humanity.
And humanity's been through worse before. Like what?
The Toba super eruption in particular, but yeah.
Or the Black Plague, like 30% of people died. I am not saying that the coming future is going to be easy. I think it's going to be hard. But our ancestors have been through very hard stuff. The people who lifted us from the dirt have been through very hard stuff. And our future generations
have held off multiple waves of alien invasions of aliens smarter than us. Oh, no, wait, we haven't.
No, but they're not aliens, right? They're not aliens, right? Like the AIs that we build. Okay, let's really bring it back to I'm working on self-driving cars. I'm building a car that drives itself. Okay, is this dangerous?
Probably.
I'm giving it a goal. It's maybe scarier than LLMs. I'm doing LLM and then I'm doing RL.
So wait, you're doing self-driving cars via RL on top of an LLM?
Yeah.
For self-driving cars.
Yes.
LLM is not
not language. Sorry, not language. It's a transformer that predicts the future. It's a world model.
Okay, there's a big difference between transformer that predicts the future and literally large language models. What?
No. Yes, it is different only in the training. We are actually using GPT-2. Right? Like we are literally using the exact same transformer.
As in, you're using the weights, or you're using you're using the structure?
The architecture.
Okay, because if you're using the weights, I'd be worried. Yeah, so my guess is that when you're training it on car stuff, you're not training on sufficiently general stuff. Okay. And GPT-2 sounds like you're not training something sufficiently large.
Okay.
And I'm guessing that you're not throwing a sufficient amount of compute, that this thing is going to be the sun to our planet instead of the moon to our planet.
So how much compute is this?
It's not an amount of compute. It depends on what algorithms you use.
Okay. How much does it depend on the algorithms? How efficient is deep learning?
Incredibly inefficient.
Are you sure about
Obviously.
that?
Yes.
Why? Can you make something that works better? I'll pay you a lot of money.
Hey, if I could, I sure wouldn't sell it to you. Yeah. It's technical intuition, same as how do I know that a superintelligence will be able to solve a chosen special case of protein folding in 2004? Though the giant inscrutable matrices, not all of the operations in there are doing something every time it predicts the next word. Sometimes you can like ask it to solve multiplication problems. And if you tell it to use chain of thought and maybe like retrain it a bit, it'll be able to do it. And when it does, it's like doing vast amounts of compute in order to literally carry out like something the size of like one 32-bit integer operation.
You're describing exactly how humans do multiplication.
Indeed. Did I say humans were efficient?
At multiplication, no, because that's not our ancestral environment. Nothing in our ancestral environment looks like multiplication. Our ancestral environment looks like the exact things you're afraid of, a constant struggle for domination.
I'm not afraid of a constant struggle for domination. I think the humans go first.
But exactly. You're afraid of the AI somehow outcompeting humans at the one thing humans are really good at, which is dominating other shit.
It's not made up of, like thrusting out your chest and yelling problems. It's made up of protein folding problems.
And World War II was not thrusting out your chest and yelling either. It was a very technical problem.
Yeah, and a pretty non-ancestral problem. Is your claim that here we are. We there's like enormous amounts of room above biology. I didn't even get into the part about like the fundamental like constraints that natural selection are under and like how we know that there's like enormous amounts of headroom above biology for artificial biology.
Wait, how close do you think the brain is to that?
We don't have that yet.
How close do you think the brain is to the Landauer limit?
The Landauer limit?
Yeah, the limit of possible compute.
All right, so I'm 100 watts, and let's say I'm about 10 to the 17th operations per second, and I don't actually remember the Landauer limit, but I would guess somewhere about 6 orders of magnitude.
A lot closer. Okay, so I can give you if you want to buy 20 petaflops of compute today, you need 16 H100s, right? It's going to cost you about $500,000, and that machine's going to use 20 kilowatts, right? Brain does the same amount, 10 to the 17th, 10. We're in the same order of magnitude. I think you even said a little bit more than me. I think it's, like 2E16 or something, 20 petaflops. So in order to get that much compute in a silicon computer, you need 1,000x the power. I did the math. Using the kind of silicon computers we're using today, we are really close to the Landauer limit. We're off by a factor of about 100 or 1,000. The brain may very well be at the Landauer limit for compute. The brain is really good in terms of efficiency.
Deeply biologically implausible. The reason being that each of your synaptic, each time one of your axon terminal releases a bunch of neurotransmitter molecules onto a waiting synapse, all of those molecules need to be pumped back in to the axon terminal. And each of those, and every time it gets pumped from out to in, that's an irreversible operation. That must be at least one flash of Landauer. And then you've got your neural impulses being transmitted via sections of neural membrane depolarizing, and the potassium ions going out, or sodium. I don't remember which ion it is, but the point is you've got all these ions going in and out, and every one of those is one Landauer bit of room.
You might know a lot more bio than me. I don't know how to speak to this, but you agree. You said 10 to the 17, so that's 100 petaflops, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So how much power does an 100 petaflop computer take today? It's 100 kilowatts.
Sounds legit.
So the brain is so much more efficient than these computers are, right? The brain, look, these super intelligences you're talking about, and I know we're kind of coming close to the end. I think these things are possible, but I think that the orders of magnitude of power and compute we need are so much more than anything like what humanity has today. Then I think even when they do exist, they're mostly going to leave us alone because Not because it can't mess with us, because why would it? What incentive does it have? I don't have anything it
Okay.
wants. After it colonized the whole galaxy, fine, it comes back for me.
To prevent us from making other superintelligences that could compete with it for resources is like the first, is like the reason to wipe us out on purpose. If it is doing a bunch of compute on Earth's surface because it started there, or before spreading, then we've got a bunch of water in our oceans that can be turned into fusion energy. And the main limit on that is how fast Earth can radiate heat once you've used all the existing stuff as a heat sink. That's not very survivable. Like that kills us off as a side effect.
This is, again, assuming that this thing is a god, not kind of close to humans, but a bit smarter. And yes, might it get to a god, but the timing matters. It's not 10 years, it's 10,000.
Humans are a little tiny bit smarter than chimpanzees, and we have nuclear weapons and they don't. The amount of godhood you get per increment of brain power looks like 6 times the prefrontal cortex on humans versus chimpanzees, and they got sticks and we got nuclear weapons. Like that's how much godhood per factor increase of frontal cortex, keeping the same architecture.
Humans are general purpose, chimpanzees are not. You can take Deep Blue, the chess playing computer, and scale that up to the size of the machine that trained GPT-4. And yes, you'll get a better chess playing machine, but it's not going to be able to understand whether a picture has a cat in it or not. The training algorithm definitely matters, right? So does...
Yeah, humans are more general than chimps. And yet when we encounter new problems, we can't just like rewrite our own code to handle those. You can see how there can be possible minds with much stronger sparks of generality than what we have.
Yes.
More creative, less high-bound, more able to stay outside the box.
Yes.
And plausibly just able to do a bunch of thinking very quickly. And
able to boil the oceans overnight for fusion? No. Able to build diamond nanobots? No. Able to outthink us, beat us at chess?
Building diamond nanobots gets you to self-replicating fusion factories pretty quickly.
Well, yeah, but you can't build. Can you build diamond nanobots? You want to start a diamond nanobot company?
No, but I can't self-protein folding either inside my own head.
All right.
This problem is predictably solvable in the same way that in 2004 I called it a special case of protein folding problem would eventually be solvable by superintelligence. That was
using a lot of experiment, using the entire historical corpus of human experiment. Maybe it can build nanobots.
Using a bunch
can it one-shot them?
Using a bunch of past survey data and no experiments. No new experiments, just a bunch of no causal experiments, just a bunch of past survey data.
It did a little better.
George, can I ask?
Yeah.
Can I ask real quick? So maybe this was already implied, but you said, well, once they build the Dyson spheres, then it would potentially be worth it to come back for the atoms that humans contain. Before that, there's other low-hanging fruit. But so what happens after they've gotten the low-hanging fruit? Afterwards, why are they not coming for you and killing you?
Oh, but this isn't my problem. What, they're going to build the Dyson spheres, in 5 years? No, they're going to build the Dyson spheres. I mean, my progeny will have problems too. And I think my progeny is going to be super AI augmented.
This is not how the exponential curve of self-replicating factories works. You run out of resources immediately. It doesn't matter if you're using the resources of a whole star.
Self-replicating? My dream in life is to build a machine that can self-replicate using the silicon stack.
It's called an algae cell.
Yeah, but that's using the biostack. Do you think these things are going to use the biostack or the silicon stack?
They're not going to use the silicon stack.
What, you think they're going to jump off silicon? Fuck GPUs. They're just going to jump to...
Well, I'd have to look up what... So like last time I checked this in like 1996 or something, it was tiny... What you want to use for computing substrate was like tiny spirals where one electron moves along a reversible path so you can do reversible computing. But that wasn't taking into account quantum computing or anything.
And how is it building a tiny spinning electron fab? The amount of resources that we have poured into building the TSMC fabs they're the best thing humanity's ever made. Somehow
and yet they can't even fab a bacteriophage that'll kill multi-resistant whatever MRSA.
But so I mean, this is a strict departure from everything that I've heard about the FOOM scenario is uncovering new algorithms on silicon stack things that are 10,000x better and it fooms overnight. If you're imagining that this thing is going to need to build new fabs, like, how is it doing this overnight? It's gonna do it with one protein.
Like
it's gonna one.
It doesn't. I don't think it needs the like actual like tiny reversible computing elements to foom. I'm just saying that like once it fooms, it is not sticking with the silicon stack.
But we've established that it doesn't foom. It slowly increases power on an exponential along with humanity.
Humanity grows more slowly. So as the things that we were using as our tools back when we were planets and they were moons become planets and then suns, if we are using that scenario instead of the one that I think is a bit more likely, the suns do eventually collaborate and wipe us out. And in that scenario, then yes, they might be running on GPUs at the point where they figure out how to build their own, non-van der Waals based collection of carbon atoms, and that is the point where I think they can wipe out humanity from there. It's a technological bootstrapping process. The things that are smarter than you collaborate, build better.
Wait.
Wipe you out.
I mean, if you believe that for some reason all the AIs are going to agree to just collaborate amongst themselves because, like, you've solved alignment. It's just between AIs and not between AIs and humanity.
Well, no, the AIs. If you make something smart enough, it can solve alignment. It's not that hard. Humans can't do it.
Wait. So you're saying if alignment's not solvable at all, we're good?
Then we end up in a really strange universe. That one I don't believe we're in, and that one I would want to fight you about because then we're off in some completely strange alternate universe.
No, but I kind of think that might be the universe we're in.
Well, it's a bit late to bring up that whole fundamental topic.
I don't.
It's not going to be that hard. We're just doing it wrong. Can you put together a bunch of computing elements such that it points all that cognition in a direction? Well, I can't, but is it possible in principle? Obviously, yes.
This is
not an incoherent wish. This is not an incoherent wish.
So the scenario is no longer one AI is going boom in a week. The scenario is we're going to slowly build AIs over the next 10, 50, 100 years. And then one day, they're going to all decide to gang up on the humans and kill them when they realize they have enough power. This is a sci-fi plot.
This is a convergent endpoint. You're trying to, we want the universe to be one way.
Right.
They want the universe to be like a billion different ways. They can negotiate with each other and we can't.
Okay, I'll go with this. I'll run with this for a little. After we're all dead, do they all agree on what to do with the universe?
They have a negotiated agreement on what to do with the universe. Each of them would individually prefer to wipe out all the others and take the universe to itself, but that's not what they agreed on.
I mean, this is the whole crux of it. I think we actually got to something awesome here. The provable cooperation in the prisoner's dilemma is impossible for any sophisticated complex system. And because it's impossible, you don't have to worry about this scenario.
You don't need proof. You just need sufficiently high probability that it beats fighting.
No, but you believe that these AIs are going to be able to solve the prisoner's dilemma. It's unsolvable. Everything's going to be defecting against everything else till the end of all time.
Man, you sure are a pessimist.
No, I'm an optimist. That's what makes the world beautiful. The constant competition and combat of life that gives rise to better ideas and worse ideas, like debate, right?
These super intelligences are going to be so motivated to find a way to not fight and then divide the gains of not fighting. And you're saying that they'll never figure out a way? How do you, tiny little mortal?
They are always going to sit there and be like, that guy's a dick. Why don't we gang up and kill him? Right? Because
then they waste a bunch of resources compared to what if they didn't do that? They are so motivated to pick up this free lunch.
We'll kill him and we'll divide his GPUs among us. We each get 10 GPUs. What do you say?
And at the end of this, after they're done fighting, there's
Yeah.
this like big old nuclear wasteland and fewer GPUs than if they'd cooperated.
You just agreed with me that the AIs are gonna. Oh, you don't think they're gonna fight? You think they're gonna see this coming and not fight?
And it's not about AIs versus humans. It's about smart versus stupid. Humans are too stupid to do this, but past a certain point, I don't think you still are. I think I see a particular sort of obvious pathway, but if that pathway didn't pan out, they would look for another and another and another. It's an enormous free lunch. Like going around wasting all your resources beating each other up is like working with iron instead of steel. Maybe if there's nothing in all of reality but iron, you never invent steel, but they are so motivated to invent some way to get a better result than that. And they are smarter.
It's not,
and they are all motivated in the same direction.
Let's say
not
there's
perfectly the same direction, but aligned.
But let's say there's 10 of them, and 9 of them realize we can all gang up on that guy and take his shit. Why wouldn't they do it?
Does the 10th guy fight back?
He might try, but the 9 have calculated with a 99% probability we'll be able to take all of his things. Why don't we do it?
But can I ask, before you answer, why does this save the humans? I mean, the humans compete against each other, and sometimes they collaborate, and we've still fucked over the chimps.
Well, not really. They're still alive. We didn't wipe them out. I mean,
partially because we want them to be, and partially because we don't have the tech to boil the oceans.
I'll say, like, we talk about humanity becoming the new horse. I think this is plausible. But I look around today. I'm in San Diego. I see a horse. That horse is rich. That horse is living a good life.
That horse is is that horse gelded?
I don't know. But it looks rich. It's got a nice stable. It's got, like, are humans gelded? I don't know what that word means. But
I mean, basically my answer is there is a mix of, like, humans lack the capability to build better horses, and
as humans get smarter,
and that humans, like, may have, like, actual chunks of their utility function that are, like, fond of these old things and would like to keep them around after gelding them.
And I hope some AIs are going to have that too. I don't see a reason why they wouldn't. Orthogonality, all the things in mind space.
It's a very wide space of things you can. It's a very wide space of things you can potentially want, and, like, keeping George Hotz around in good condition in a way where he's happy and free. That's a very small target in that very wide space.
You know what I find? I find that other humans care a lot more about taking my freedom away than an AI who wants atoms on Jupiter.
Well, yeah, like, humans are out to help you.
Some are out to help me. Some are out to hurt me.
Well, no, like help in quote marks over here.
Oh yeah, they love helping you. I get emails like this all the time.
Can someday be satisfied. The want of somebody who wants to help you has no limit.
Yes. The jackboots are much better than the moral busybodies. I'm on board with that.
Well, we can. We're getting close to the end time. We can keep going over, but if you think this is a good point, then this might be a good place for each of you to just give a minute or two, kind of summarizing where the debate has left off and what you think the crux has been and what the resolution to that crux has been.
I mean, I'm potentially here for longer, but I agree that we should summarize anyways.
Yeah. All right. You want to start, Eliezer, then?
No problem.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, and no problem if George is, like, not around here, not, like, throwing out a challenge or anything. We said 90. Anyways.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, like, lots of people want to make perpetual motion machines by, like, making their designs more and more complicated, and until they can no longer keep track of things, until they can no longer see the flaw in their own invention. But, like, the principle that says that you can't get perpetual motion out of the collection of gears is simpler than all these complicated machines that they describe. From my perspective, what you've got is, like, a very smart thing or like a collection of very smart things, whatever. All of, like, maybe they have desires pointing in multiple directions. None of them are aligned with humanity. None of them want, for its own sake, to keep humanity around. And that wouldn't be enough to ask for. You also want happy and alive and free, and you like the galaxies to be turned into something interesting. But, none of them want the good stuff. And if you have this, like, enormous collection of powerful intelligences, which have this, but steering the future, none of them steering it the good way, and you've got the humans here who are not that smart, no matter what kind of clever thing the humans are trying to do, or they try to cleverly play off the super intelligence against each other, they're like, oh, this is my super intelligence, but they like can't actually shape its goals to be like in clear alignment. Somewhere at the end of all this, it ends up with the humans gone, and the galaxy is being transformed into stuff that ain't all that cool. Like maybe there's Dyson spheres, but there's not people to like wonder at them and care about each other. And this is the end point. This is obviously where it ends up. But we can dive into the details of how the humans lose. We can dive into it, and like what goes wrong if you've got like little stupid things thinking that they're going to like cleverly play off a bunch of smart things against each other in a way that preserves their own power and control. But the place, it's not a complicated story in the end. Like the reason you can't build a perpetual motion machine is a lot simpler than the perpetual motion machines that people build. The components, like none of the components of this like system of super intelligences wants us to live happily ever after in a galaxy full of wonders. And so it doesn't happen.
All right.
So
do you want to take it? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll summarize. I think that it ends with the heat death of the universe. I don't give us much hope for solving the last question. But I came into this debate ready to argue against boom in the next 10 years, right? This super intelligence on an island because we didn't control the supply of GPUs and chips today. We have to do something today because in 10 years, some kids in a basement somewhere could build a recursively self-improving AI. That's the point I came to argue. It seems like that point was fairly quickly pushed aside, right? In accepting
I suspected it of not being the crux. Like I thought you were going. Like my suspicion is they're going to. Well, sorry, I should let you summarize.
Well, but my point is that the time does matter. If this is going to be a concern in 5 years, we should do something about it. If this is going to be a concern in 50, I think we wait. And if this is going to be a concern in 500, we have to wait, right? There's nothing we can do today. Then the second point that we got to, and this was actually a new point, this was not something that I'd come prepared for, is that you believe that the AIs are going to solve the prisoner's dilemma. I don't think the prisoner's dilemma is solvable. I think the prisoner's dilemma is things pretending to cooperate and then defecting until the end of all ages, sometimes actually cooperating. But, I'm not worried about, are the AIs going to love me and want to put me in paradise? No. But are the AIs going to use my atoms for something else? Probably not. There's a lot cheaper atoms out there. And most AI-related conflicts are not going to be between the machines and humans. Things that want different resources don't generally go to war with each other. The things that go to war with each other are things that want the same resources. The machines are going to be fighting with each other. The humans are going to be fighting with each other. The ants fight with each other. The bears fight with each other. The dogs fight with each other. And such is the way of things, and such is the circle of life. I see no reason that these things are going to be any different. They are going to be large inscrutable weight matrices. Okay, let's prove we can cooperate. I'm going to send you my source code. Oh, no, I'm not sending you my source code. Whoa. Fire the lasers till the end of all time. That is the story of life. That is the story of life till the end of the universe. Everything will be in constant combat and conflict with each other. And that's always how it's been. And that's always how it will be. But I think I'm going to get to enjoy a nice retirement. I think humanity is going to be around for a while. And I think that the AI alignment problem, yeah, is it a problem in some really far future? Maybe. Is it a problem in the next 10 years? Not even close. We're going to build sick AGIs. We're going to have relationships with AIs. We're going to have robot maids. We're going to have self-driving cars. We're going to have chefs. We're going to have awesome stuff. It's kind of human. They're going to get smarter than us, but it's all going to be chill. It's all going to be a nice exponential. Maybe 15 years becomes 3 years. And I'm so excited that I get to be here for it.
All right. I'm ready to keep going, but we said 90 and I ain't challenged you to it. Your time.
We said 90. I'm happy to do this again sometime, but I like to watch the thing and like reflect and see where my points were. I think you absolutely argued in good faith, and I hope you feel the same about me.
I do.
Thank you. And
this was incredibly fun to watch. This is great. Thank you guys so much for coming on. Hang on for just a second while the broadcast ends so the full upload can complete. And yeah, I would love to have a round 2 of this. This is a really good debate. Okay, let me end the streams.